Hello and welcome to Beyond Top 10 Tennis. My name is Dr. Ashley Berge and I'm your host. If you're not familiar with my work or would like to learn more about it, head on over to AIM International, the first tennis lab of its kind worldwide that is centered on delivering top 10 tennis rankings and is 100% backed by science. This season we're embarking on something new, something fresh. What I've been holding back, changeover segments, will deliver how to beat the best players in the world or how the best players in the world are winning with top 10 to Grand Slam differences. If you want more, that's where my 14 books come into play, so be sure to dive into them and become familiar with AIM International and the 190 plus episodes to date. Look, it's a new frontier and I'm no longer holding back, so buckle in and enjoy the ride. Welcome to another edition of Beyond Top 10 Tennis. I don't know about you, but I can't believe that we are already this deep past the Australian Open. We've already got 1,000 behind us. We've got another 1,000 this week on the WTA Tour. Jam-packed again on the ATP Tour. But look, if you've been with us for some time now, thank you so much. We would not be here without you. If you are new, welcome. As always, I would encourage you to track back to those early episodes. And maybe one of the best books to start with is my Tennis Black book. It's the one that came out December 24. And then your workbook came out about a year ago, almost. Both of them paired together will help guide you through the rest of the books, and more so I will say the inner workings of the 7 keys to the 8 keys, top 10 players, the progressions, the developmental pathway, everything that's encompassed in there, the 20-year pathway even, the difference between those winning Grand Slams and those making, say, the round of 16, so why they are not able to push further. It is jam-packed, and again, and I shared this in our previous episode, AIM International, so myself, is responsible for the longest longitudinal study, analysis, research project, whatever you want to call it, of its kind, worldwide, as far as the tennis community world is concerned, of the best place in the world, and responsible for the modeling, predictive analytics, etc. behind Grand Slam success, top 10 tennis rankings, all of the above, and that's where those books come into play. And as I'll say, progressively been sharing the last 2.5 years, I think we're at now, maybe almost going on to 3, I think, in a few months, through Beyond Top 10 Tennis, to share how the science, I guess, and the data influences the rankings and player performances week in, week out throughout the, I'll say, the tennis calendar year. Again, I also shared in our previous episode about a little bit of a lull in or delay in our episodes, purely because the last, I'll say the best part of the last 7 months, I've been working on quite an extensive fictional manuscript, something I haven't ventured into before, so I've been pulled at times away from the podcast into, I'll say, I'm trying to think of the best word for it, but it's not coming to me, so I'll just say my creative writing. So where that's just been pulling me away from the podcast at times. That said, AIM International is so jam-packed with information. It's not only the books there, but it's the archives, the previous posts there. You've got some transcripts also that, well, they're summaries really to suggest that maybe that episode's right for you. A little bit of a delay there. I think we're up to about 180. That doesn't mean that there's not more work there. I'm playing a little bit of a catch-up. So if you're not seeing, I guess, the updated transcript summaries of those episodes, it just means I've been really busy, and hopefully they'll be up there, but I'm not going to promise anything. Maybe the next couple of months, but if there's 180 to go through. I think that is more than enough to keep you busy. All right, so today's episode, we've got Dubai on the WTA Tour, Qatar, Rio, and Delray on the ATP Tour, as well as ranking insights. Last episode, we did do changeover segments, similar to what we were working with, say, during the Australian Open. No changeover segments this week, though. They may remain exclusive for Grand Slams. We'll see how that goes this season. But today, we're probably going to be a bit more jam-packed, similar to our previous episode, keeping it condensed, because we do have, I'll say, more of a deep dive coming up in the March swing when Indian Wells and Miami does kick off. And I think they're the biggest markers or the biggest tests to see how players are performing since the Australian Open, if they're able to replicate, etc., or maintain that baseline. But look, similar on the WTA Tour, we've got those 1,000 events last week in Qatar, this week Dubai, or last week, the week before, depending how you want to look at it. But ATP Tour, next week, I believe, not this week, next week will be their first 1,000. They've had a number of 500s, but they don't have or haven't had a 1,000 yet. So it's a little bit, I'll say, odd that those 1,000s are not, say, in sync. I'll say it's a little bit unfair to, as far as periodization is concerned. So I've written a little bit about that, and I've shared a lot, I will say, in the past about that, about a player, how they handle their schedule. Very, very important to make sure they don't burn out during the season. But it's a lot easier, I think, if WTA Tour, ATP Tour, have similar peaks for those big events, so Grand Slams, yes, but more so even if the 1,000s were in line as well. But it just goes to show, I think there's quite a big difference there between how those players can manage their games between even the respective tours. So that's just a little fun fact there. All right, so let's dive straight into Dubai. I'm really interested in this week because Qatar last week, Dubai, we've got Swiatek and Sabalenka have withdrawn, and I think a couple of other players have as well, really opening up the field. But what it also means is that they're not going to be able to defend those points. Swiatek had more points to defend than Sabalenka, I believe. I don't have the 25 results open. I did have a peek at them, I think, last week. So this is just from recollection. So by all means, correct me if I'm wrong. There's a high chance that that is the case. Not normally, though. That said, I'm really curious to see the uptick of some players, how they're performing since the Australian Open, if they're going to outperform themselves from Qatar, if we're going to see some regressions, which we may typically will see, if a player is able to hold that baseline from Qatar through to Dubai, or if they drop off. Similar to between, say, the Australian Open, Qatar, and that's how we can differentiate if that baseline is solid. So it's basically their minimum, their bare minimum fallbacks, that new baseline. We're not talking about peak performances. And it really, I think, shows us who's shifting gears, who's maintaining, who's ready for that next peak, that next progression, etc. If I am sounding like I'm talking mumbo jumbo, head on over to AIM International, dive into those articles, dive into those books, read through them, and that will all, I'll say, come together, begin to make more sense. All right, first round we are kicking off with, and I'm here for it. We're going first round all the way through to the finals this week because we didn't have a peak last week. So, and the results have just come in. So Rybakina did get that number one seeding because Sabalenka and Swiatek did not play. Second seed is Anisimova. And we know already the fluctuations in the rankings since last week. So this is going to be really interesting. All right, so let's get ready. Rybakina with the bye. Birrell over Maria. That's a huge win for Kimberly. She's had a bit of a regression slightly in the rankings, still inside the top 100, but that first round at a 1,000 event, that's huge for her. 6-4, 3-6-7-5. Ruzic, big win there over Raducanu, 6-1, 5-7, 6-2. Zakharova over Uchijama, 2-4. Bencic over Bezes-Minero. Look, Bezes-Minero, she's had a bit of an uptick, especially at the end of last season. So good win for Bencic there, but it was tight. by 2-6. 6-1, 6-2. Sonmez has fallen to Bezjek, so Bezjek over Sonmez 2-2. Badosa, good win for her over Siniakova 3-5, only because Badosa's had a couple of tough matches lately or fallen early. Svitolina with the bye, Gauff with the bye. Kalinskaya, Ostapenko first round, that was going to be tough either way. But yeah, Kalinskaya, that does track with how she's been performing over Ostapenko. 2-6, 6-1, 6-4. Mertens over Buskova. This is a big one because Buskova has been progressing. So Mertens with the win 2-2 just shows you how well Mertens has been playing so far this season. We know how well she played in the United Cup, for example. Navarro over Ruse 4-5. That's good. Navarro needed that win. Noskova over Lee 6-3, 5-7, 6-4. So Staya over Sasnovich 3-6. Tough tiebreak there 8-6. Ayala over Baptiste. Baptiste unfortunately had to retire in the second, but Ayala did get that first set 6-4. Baptiste got, I'll say, one game in the second, then retired. Paolini with the bye, Alexandrova with the bye. Lynette over Sun, 4-6, 6-4, 6-1. I'm really feeling for Lulu because ever since I'll say her Wimbledon breakthrough, she's just had some tough draws there. But let's see, you never know. She's still an up-and-comer. Stearns over Fretch, 4-2. Torsen over Kennan, 7-6, 6-2. Jovic over Rakimova, 6-1, 1-6, 6-1. Interesting when those scorelines are like that. The only other player I think I've seen that with, right, was that Swiatek Kalinskaya match. Interesting. So we know it does happen from time. Schneider over Joint. That's actually a really good win for Schneider. Joint's been playing some really good tennis. But again, Schneider is ranked high, but very tough first round for both players, 4-1. Gracheva over Shramkova, 7-5, 1-6, 6-4. Pegula with the bye, Andreeva with the bye. Kazakina over Seidman, good win for Kazakina, 2-3. Seidel over Buska. I'm going to say a bit of an upset because Buska's been playing some good tennis lately, 1-4. Christian over Mancino, 1-1. Fernandez over Samsonova. This is a really big win for Fernandez, 5-7, 7-5, 6-3, especially with how Samsonova's been playing the last couple of months. Tijin over Yastremska, 4-1. Krejcikova, good win over Pavlyuchenkova, 4-4. Tough either way. You've got a Grand Slam finalist and Grand Slam champion there in the first round meeting. Anisimova then with the bye. All right, second round. I hope you're enjoying this. I'm already enjoying this because this has been really good because, again, looking from Qatar to Dubai, how these players are performing. And I feel like the gates are wide open with, the top two players are not there, which means there is more players who are going to have that potential to break through. All right, Rybakina, Birrell in the second round, 1-2 Rybakina. Ruzic over Zarakova, 6-1, 6-7, 6-1. Well done, Ruzic. Benchik got the walkover over Bezjek. Svitolina got the win over Badosa. First set, Svitolina 6-4. Badosa unfortunately had to retire. It's tough. It's really tough for Badosa with those retirements. Gauff over Kalinskaya. What a tough second round there, but well done, Gauff, 4-4. Mertens over Navarro. Tough either way. Mertens is not seeded. Navarro is, but again, Mertens should be seeded absolutely. 2-2 to Mertens there. Sir Staya, big upset there over Noskova. 1-4. Well done, Sir Staya. Ayala, big upset there over Paolini, 6-1, 7-6. I think that has to be the second biggest win over Ayala in her career. We know she got that win over Swiatek for that breakthrough. I think it was Indian Wells or Miami last year. But that's actually a big result for Ayala there. 7-5 in that tiebreak. Lynette over Alexandrova. Big win for Lynette. 6-2, 4-6, 6-1. Already a number of upsets. Torsen over Stearns, 2-4. Jovic over Schneider, 6-4, 1-6, 6-love. Look, would have been the other way around this time last year, right? Absolutely. Just shows how Jovic actually has been correlating with her ranking, similar to Mboko, although Mboko's been, I'll say, at the top for longer at the rankings in that respect. Just only a few years between them. I think 1 or 2 years between them. But Jovic, she's really, I'll say, owning that new ranking high. So she definitely is one to watch to see if she continues to correlate or not. I wouldn't be surprised. We typically will see a bit of a regression before we see that progression again. Pegula over Gracheva, 4-0. Andreeva got a walkover over Kazatkina. Christian over Seidel. 6-love Christian, and Seidel retired. Tajin's upset Fernandez, 7-6, 6-4, and Anisimova got a walkover over Krejcikova. That's a bummer. That is unfortunate with those retirements there. Round of 16. So we know we've already got a number of upsets, but so far most of the top seeds are in play. We know Paolini though is out. Big upset here. Look at this. Ruzic has upset Rybakina in the round of 16. 5-7, 6-4, 1-0, and Rybakina had to retire, which is unfortunate. But what that means, and this is huge because I was following this all week, and this is why we haven't seen, I'll say, Rybakina overtake Swiatek. This week, if Rybakina did perform well, she would have gotten to number 2 in the rankings. Absolutely. Or even just by a feather, she would have progressed to number 2. But because Ruzic did cause that upset, Rybakina, she's sitting at 3, but there's still only a couple of 100 points between them rather than the thousands that potentially it could or would have been, I'll say, a few months ago. All right, Svitolina got the win over Bencic, showing how Svitolina, she's just playing some really good tennis. 4-6, 6-1, 6-3, still very close with Bencic. She's playing some great tennis as well. All right, Gauff over Mertens. I love how this is really close because it highlights how well Mertens been playing this season. 2-6, 7-6. Oh my goodness, that was 11-9 in that tiebreak. 6-3. Wow, that was absolutely, Mertens must have had match points there. Gauff clawing her way back. Ayala, a good win over Sestaya, opening up after that win over Paolini. 5-4 for Ayala. Torsen over Lynette, 4-2. Pegula, Jovic. That was an interesting one, but 4-2 to Pegula. Well done there. Andreeva over Christian, 5-3. Good to see Andreeva getting a couple of matches under her belt. Anisimova over to Jen, 1-3. Well done to Anisimova. All right, quarterfinals. Big opening, top of the draw with Rybakina out. Bottom of the draw, obviously Paolini's out, but we have higher seeds there either way. So the top 4 are still there. Gauff, Pegula, Anisimova, just no Rybakina. But we've got Svitolina there. Svitolina over Ruzic in the quarters. 3-6, 6-2, 6-3. But well done, Ruzic, pushing Svitolina to 3. Gauff over Ayala, love and 2. Well done, Gauff. Pegula over Torsen, 6-3, 2-6, 6-4. Again, well done, Pegula, but I guess that shows also that Torsen, she's definitely in the running. I'll say to maintain on the cusp of the top 10 to see if a player does regress. Torsen, I think, in the next... Maybe not this season, but, Mboko broke into the top 10 last week, so we never know. All right, Anisimova over Andreeva. I love this scoreline. I think it goes to show that Andreeva has picked up her game. Good to see, just with that slight lull. But Anisimova, she's still there and obviously recovered from that. I think it was that retirement last week. 2-6, 7-5, 7-6, 7-4 in that tie break. So what I love about that is it's neck and neck. Can't pull them apart as far as their results or their progressions are concerned, which is going to be good for the March swing. All right, semi-finals, Svitolina and Gauff. This is an upset, but look at this. This is really great to see. 6-4, 6-7, but look at that tie-break score. Gauff got the tie-break 15. No, sorry. She got the tie-break... 15-13. 15-13, oh my goodness. That is absolutely, I don't know how many match points Gauff saved for that. That's huge. But then Svitolina in the third, 6-4. That's great. Shows, I think, how well Svitolina's been playing. That is absolutely her new baseline. Top 10, good results in Qatar. And now she's made the finals in Dubai. Gauff, you know, she's still there. She's making the semi-finals. She's not going anywhere. Pegula and Anisimova. Anisimova's not going anywhere either because Pegula did get that win in 3. 1-6, 6-4, 6-3, just to show how tight all those players are. Final, Pegula did get the win over Svitolina, 6-2, 6-4. I would say that is anticipated with how well Pegula has been playing, but that's why she's absolutely deserving that top 5 ranking again. That was fun. I had actually fun sharing all of that. So that is Dubai. Pegula, our new champion. Very, very cool to see. All right, so only Dubai this week because we've got back-to-back 1000s on the WTA Tour. So no other events to go over. So let's head on over to the ranking. Starting off at 100, Vekic is back 1, so she's at 100. But again, I did share last week, she was top 20, I think about a year ago, 18 months ago. So wow. All right, Parks is back 18 places to 95. That is a big hit. Potapova is back 15 to 91. A lot of movement. Zakharova, she's up 16, so back inside the top 100, I believe, to 88 in the world. Badosa, she's taken another hit, back 15 places to 85. If I was her, I would be ignoring the rankings. Seidel, she is up 13 places to 82 in the world. Birrell, look, she's up 14 places with that first round win to 80 in the world. Not quite matching her career high, but very solid for Kimberly there. Just small movement, looking for the big ones. Gulbik, she's up 13 places to 75 in the world. That's a good hit there. Ruse is up 8 to 72. Bulfa, look, she's up 6 to 69. Lies is back 9 to 68. She was around 50, I think, a few months ago. All right, Stearns is back 4 to 62. A lot of movement going on. Not too many big ones. Look, Achiever's up 4 to 56. Kudermetova's back 5 to 54. Ruzic with that performance in Dubai, she's up 16 places to 51 in the world. Krejcikova's up 3 to 50. Yastremska's back 5 to 49. Small movements of Vondrasova, she's back 8 to 45. Kennan, she's back 14 to 44 in the world. Baptiste up 3 to 42. Kessler's back 9 to 40. To Jen, she's up 10 places to 36 in the world. That's a good hit there. Boskova's back up 4 again, 34. Again, she's still one to watch, I think, from last season. Christian's up 6 to 33. Ayala, big progression this week, up 16 places to 31. New career high. She's within reach of the top 30. That is exceptional for a player. Again, I'm going to say a year ago, right, prior to the March swing, I believe she was ranked well outside the top 100. So we do see that per season, right? We've got Ayala, then last season in Bocco, and then Jovic hopped on that as well. So big wins for those players. Look, top 30, just small movements, the 1s and the 2s. No big jumps really to go over this week. Just small. Look, Jovic's up 2 to 18 in the world, just slowly climbing. Keys is up 2 to 15. Makova's back 2 to 13. Bencic's up 1 to 12. Then Alexandrova's back to 11. Top 10, everything is as it was, other than Paolini and Andreeva have switched places. So Paolini, she's up 1 to 7. Andreeva's back 1 to 8 in the world. And I do believe Andreeva was defending that title, or maybe it was Qatar. It was one or the other. So that's not too much of a hit to take, considering. And Pegula, with that win, she's still steady at 5 in the world, although she's closed that gap. There's only 100 points between her and Coco. That's a big one, and she's extended that lead between herself and Anisimova at 6 by over 7, or around 700 points. Big, a 2,000 point gap now between 6 and 7. So Paolini's behind that, but Pegula and Andreeva are still very, very close, 200 between. Andreeva, Svitolina, but there's about a 600 point gap between, I'll say 9 and 10, so Svitolina and Bocco. Ironically, I mean, look, the gap, even though Sabalenka and Swiatek did drop points, there's still roughly that, that 3,000 point gap regardless on both sides. Rybakina, though, Swiatek, that's gaining. It's about just over 300 points separating there. 500 roughly, 400 separating Rybakina and Gauff. That is actually within reach come the March swing, so that will be very, very interesting. All right, that is the WTA Tour for this week. Let's head on over to the ATP Tour, and we are kicking off with Dubai this week. Dubai on the ATP Tour, but it's Qatar. I've misread that with my notes because it was just the Dubai in the WTA Tour, so it is Qatar the other way around. Qatar last week on the WTA Tour. All right, so Qatar is a 500. We are not at the 1000s yet. So Qatar, we've got Alcaraz in action and Sinner. So both of them playing the same tournament, which typically we wouldn't normally see, I would say, this time of year. So that's interesting, I think, depending how you want to look at it. All right, so kicking things off, first round in Qatar. And again, I think this is the first event both players, or I'll say Alcaraz, are back in action since the Australian Open. Alcaraz over Rinderknech, good start, 6-4, 7-6. Roy over Herbert, straight sets there. Fucsovic over Habib, straight set. Kakanakov over Mukazuki in 3 there, 6-1, 3-6, 6-4. Medvedev over Shang, straight sets. Tsitsipas, good win over Echagi, straight sets. We've got Marazan's upset Humbert in straight sets there. Rublev over De Jong, 4 and 3. Lecheka over Brooksby, 3 and 3. Bergs over Mapeshi Pericard in 3. Fils over Mazerak in 3. Mazerak actually has been tracking, so that's a good win for Fils. Carreno Busta has fallen to House, and House is a lucky loser, so he got that win in 3. Menzik over Chwinsky in 3. Zhang has upset, I'll say over Carabalis Baena. Zhang's on a protected ranking, must have had an injury because he's been out of action a little bit, and so good win over Carabalis Baena, 4 and 4. Poprin, he needed that win over Zaid, love and 2. Poprin's had a rough run lately. Sinner over Macaque, that's actually a very tough first round, 6-1, 6-4 for Sinner. All right, round of 16, so that was essentially 32, round of 16 here. Alcaraz over Roya, 6-2, 7-5. Kakanakov over Fuchsovic, 6-2, 4-6, 6-4. This will do a lot to Tsitsipas's confidence. Wow. Okay, Tsitsipas got a win over Medvedev, 6-3, 6-4. I did not see that coming. That'll help Tsitsipas's ranking maybe a little, maybe a very little bit, but if anything, I think it'll help his confidence. Rublev over Marazan, 2 and 4. Lehecka over Bergs, 2 and 1. Fils over Howells, 1 and 6. Great for Fils because, again, he's, I'll say, on that slight comeback trail after not being able to play the last part of, I'll say, the end of last season. Menzik over Zhang, 3 and 2. Sinner, good win over Poprin, 3 and 5. But despite, I'll say, that loss, I'm going to say that's a good result for Poprin either way, getting those games against Sinner. All right, quarterfinals. Alcaraz was pushed by Kakanakov, 6-7, 6-4, 6-3. I like that from Kakanakov. It shows that he can get back into the top 10. Rublev over Tsitsipas, 6-3, 7-6. Fils over Lehecka, that's an upset. That's a really good result for Fils, 3 and 3. I think before Fils did take time out, he got around top 15, kind of where Lehecka is at the moment or thereabouts. So I think that's a good confidence boost. And big upset, look at this. Menzik has upset Sinner in the quarters, 7-6, 2-6, 6-3. I think that was a huge surprise there, but well done to Menzik. As far as the semi-finals are concerned, we've got Alcaraz over Rublev, 7-6, 6-4. Fils over Menzik, 6-4, 7-6. I think, again, good for Fils' confidence on that comeback trail. And then Alcaraz and Fils in the final. Alcaraz did get that win, 6-2, 6-1. So well done to Alcaraz there. And that is the Qatar Open. All right. Next, we have Rio to go over and Delray this week. So let's head on over to Rio. Rio is a 500, but I'll say it wasn't as jam-packed, I'll say, with the top seeds. Cerundolo was the number 1 seed, and Delray was the 2nd seed. So similar to last week, I guess that's the South American swing from that perspective. Cerundolo over Navone, 3-4. Tirante over Garin, 5-3. Garin, I believe, was top 20 about 2-3 years ago. Tabilo over Navarra, 3-3. Passaro over Primzik, 3-4. Fonseca over Monteiro, 6-1. Bus over Marasondez in 3. Berrettini over Barasavia, 6-5. Lakovic over Altamar, 4-6. Echeverry over Comasana in 3. Gorbaz over Miguel in 3. Zumer over Martinez in 3. Faria over Baez, the 4th seed, straight sets. That's an upset. Lucky loser too, Faria was. Barocha over Carabelli. That's an upset. 3-4. Kopriva over Hyde, straight sets. Halfman over Restel Silva, straight sets. And Strundolo's upset the 2nd seed Delray first round, 6-1, 3-6, 6-4. All right, so already a few upsets. Round of 16, Tarante's upset Strundolo, the number 1 seed, 2, and then it was 3-1. So Strundolo must have retired in that 2nd set. Tabilo over Passaro in 3. Bus's upset Fonseca, the 3rd seed, in 3. Berrettini threw over Laxovic in 3. Echeverry over Gorbaz, straight sets. Faria over Zumer, straight sets. That's an upset again. Kopriva over Brokaga in straight sets. And Cerundolo over Halfman in 3. Goodness me. All right, quarters. Tabilo over Tirante in 3. Bus has upset Berrettini in 3. Echeverry's gone through over Faria, straight sets. And Kopriva over Cerundolo. Wow. All right. So semi-finals, Tabilo over Boost, straight sets. We're getting some breakthroughs here. Echeverry over Kopriva in 3, which means the finals, we've got Echeverry, the lone seed remaining, with the win over Tabilo, 3-6, 7-6, 7-3, 6-4. That was topsy-turvy. That was a lot of upsets there in Rio. But well done Echeverry getting through. But look, well done to Tabilo getting through to the final. It is a 500 after all. Both players will see a push in their rankings, absolutely. All right, let's move on now to Delray. Last one for this week on the ATP Tour. Ironically, same week, but it's a 250, and Fritz played. I'm thinking it's more so hometown vibe, and Rudd is the 2nd seed, Fritz 1st seed. All right, let's dive in. Fritz with the 1st round bye. Jodar over Quinn, straight sets. Walton, lucky loser, got that win over Diallo. That's actually a really good win. Considering I did say in our previous episode that Diallo is one to watch, I believe, this season. Paul, good win over Mute in 3. Team with a bye. Kekinvich over Bellucci, straight sets. Savada over Kokovic, straight sets. That's an upset. TFO over Hajaka, straight sets. Nakashima over Silic, good win there, 2 tie breaks. Wong over Borges, that's an upset. Wong's a qualifier, that's in 3. Atame over Kimpson in 3. Kaboli with a bye. Mitchelson over Vachereau, the 6th seed, that's an upset there, straight sets. Quarter, a good win over McDonald, straight sets. Garon over Shimburko, straight sets. Rudd with the bye. All right. Round of 16, we do have Fritz and Jodar. Fritz with the win, 7-6, 6-4. Paul over Walton, 7-6, 6-3. That first set tiebreak, though, 13-11. Teen over Kekinvich, 6-4, 6-7, 7-6. TFO over Savada, 6-4, 3-6, 7-5. Wong over Nakashima, that's an upset, 6-4, 7-6. Kaboli over Adame, 7-5, 6-4. Quarter over Mitchelson, 3-6. Rudd with the 3-set win over Garon, 4-6, 7-6, 6-4. All right, quarters here, and this is what we want to see. Well, not necessarily want to see, but it's a good one for Paul. Fritz and Paul. Paul has upset Fritz 6-4, 6-3. We need to see a bit more of that to get Paul back on track. All right, Teen over TFO, good win there. Nice and tight though. 7-6, 3-6, 7-5. Kaboli, good win over Wall. 7-5, 6-7, 6-2. Quarter. He's on a roll the last fortnight, I'll say. Good win over Rudd. 4-6, 6-2, 6-2. That's a big surprise there. So, well, not that surprising given how Quarter was playing the last few weeks, but nonetheless, it is a tough one against Rudd. All right, so semi-finals. Paul, good win over Teen. 4-6, 6-4, 6-3. This is what I was talking about last week. This is what we wanted to see. Quarter has upset Gaboli 7-6, 6-1. That's a huge win for Quarter. Huge for his confidence and his ranking because, again, former top 30. And how's this final? Quarter and Paul. Quarter has upset Paul 6-4, 6-3. That's going to be huge for Quarter's ranking, although not as huge as we'd like to see because it is a 250. But still great to see great to see Paul back into a final. But really good to see Quarter with that win for his confidence. With everything I'll say must have been thrown his way the last 12, 18 months for that regression. So we should see a healthy uptick in his ranking. All right, that's the matches for the ATP Tour this week. So let's head on over to the rankings to see what's changed. All right, Van Ash, how's this? 21-year-old Frenchman, up 30 places to get to 100 in the world. That's definitely on the Challenger circuit, but well done, Van Ash. Very cool. Wawrinka's, he's just back one, but he's at 99. Savaja, he's up 8 places. Welcome to the top 100, up to 98 in the world. Andres Burukaga is up 6 places to 96. Blocks is up 10 to 94, back inside the top 100. Shevchenko's back 13 places, so he's at 92. A lot of movement still this week. Look, Walton's up 6 to 87. Mislovic is back 5 to 86. Komasana, 19-point regression to 82 in the world. Halfman's up 9 to 81. Mueller's back 26 to 78 in the world. Taranti's up 16 to 76. Hercak's back to 73. Collignon's back 12 to 71. Cerundolo's up 8 to 70. A lot more movement here than WTA Tour this week, but we've seen, I think, interchanges per or different cycles. Bus is up 25 to 66. Kopriva's up 22 to 65. Vanderzen Schulp's back 6 to 61. Ugo Carabelli's back 13 to 59. What a movement. Baez is back 20 to 52. Poprin, he's back 6. So back inside the top 50 for Poprin. So he's at 47. Tabilo with that result this week. He's up 26 places. That's huge for him to 42 in the world. That's great to see with that finalist result. Quarter with that win. He's up 10 places to 40, clawing his way back. That's really good to see. Small movement from here. Fils is up 6 to 34. Echeverry up 18 places to 33 with that win. Tsitsipas up 3 to 30. There we go. Back inside the top 30 just. Smallman, look, Paul with that final result. He's up 2 to 22 in the world. Let's see if he can get closer to the top 10 again this season. That'll be interesting to see how he performs in March. All right, Rublev, he's back 4 to 18. Draper's back 3 to 15. Menzik is up 3 to 13. And Rudd's up 1, so he's at 12. Medvedev steady at 11. Top 10 is the same. Fritz and Igor Elisime have just traded places. So Fritz is up 1 to 7 and Felix is back 1 to 8. But that is predominantly it. And for perspective, Sinner and Alcaraz, same as the WTA Tour, 3,000-point lead roughly between them. So just to put that into perspective, it's not as not essentially an anomaly. We do have Sabalenka and Alcaraz respectively leading their respective tours, and the gap 3,000 between 1 and 2 in the world. All right, that is all the results that we've done Dubai on the WTA Tour, Qatar, even though I did mix that up, Qatar, Rio and Delray on the ATP Tour, and all the rankings. We held off on the changeover segment this week. Dive into last week's episode to catch up on them as well, because there were a number of ones that I did touch on. All right, so that's it for this week. Thank you so much for listening. To grab your copy of any one of my 14 books, you can find them on AIM International or Amazon, irrespective where you're based in the world. For any comments or questions, head to AIM8 or Topic Thread, or leave comments directly on YouTube or Spotify. To interact with Beyond Top 10 Tennis, catch up on our blogs, or sign up to my newsletter, head to AIM International, and remember to check out Pink Octa's books to Spruik. Look, and if you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe, like, share, and all of the above. Beyond Top 10 Tennis exists for you, so please consider sharing us with those you know, near and far. And look, if you're serious about heading towards the top 10, or want to know what you're missing to secure that maiden Grand Slam or more, don't be shy. Come and say hi. All right, on that note, thank you so much for listening. I am so incredibly grateful. I'm your host, Dr. Ashley Morgan Berge, and this is Beyond Top 10 Tennis, and I'll see you next time.